guys, so today we're going to be talking about quadrilaterals. And when we talk about quadrilaterals, we are going to be talking about the different characteristics of different types of quadrilaterals. There are several different types. Behind me, you see our anchor chart for today, which is the quadrilateral hierarchy. And all a hierarchy is what these arrows are showing you here. So it's showing you how this can be a quadrilateral, this can be a quadrilateral, and then it breaks off. And these two different shapes can only be a whatever that shape is. So the first thing that we need to know really before we start talking about quadrilaterals is, what does the word quadrilateral mean? And it is important to know that the word quadrilateral, the first four letters, Q-U-D-A-D, means four. So a quadrilateral is any shape that has four sides and four angles. So hopefully by now you have been given a sheet that looks like this, and I know yours looks a little bit different. Mine is colored and yours is not, but hopefully you've been given this sheet, and we are going to actually work today to fill this sheet out together. So using my anchor chart here and using the information that I give you, please fill out that sheet while you are listening. So the first thing that we're going to start off with, and I'm going to bring you a little bit closer so that way you can see it, is our quadrilateral. And we just talked about the characteristics of a quadrilateral. It has four sides and four angles. Notice that none of these sides are necessarily equal here. Okay? None of them are congruent. The angles may not be the same measurements, and that is all okay. As long as a quadrilateral has four sides and four angles, it can be a quadrilateral. The next shape that we are going to talk about is the pink shape, and that is called a trapezoid. You can see here that a trapezoid has four sides, and a trapezoid has at least one pair of parallel lines. Parallel lines are two lines that are never, ever, ever going to intersect. So they can either run this way or they can run up and down this way. And they are never, ever, ever going to intersect. So they're going to keep going on and on and on and on and on in a straight line and never, ever, ever intersect. So a trapezoid has to have at least one set of parallel lines. On this shape here, you can see that my parallel lines are these top ones and these bottom ones. Sometimes you will see these parallel lines with these marks on them. And that is to show that both of those lines are parallel to one another. So that means that they will run forever and ever in the direction of left and right and never, ever, ever touch. The next shape that we are going to talk about is the green shape, and it is called a parallelogram. As you can see, a parallelogram also has four sides, which is why these three shapes are considered quadrilaterals. But it is also important to note that on a parallelogram, that opposite sides are parallel, all opposite sides. So these two sides are parallel and these two sides are parallel. It is also important to know that opposite angles are congruent, and hopefully by now you should know that the word congruent means equal. That means that on this shape here, this angle is going to be the same as this angle measurement, and this angle measurement is going to be the same as this angle measurement. Now, we are going to look down. As you can notice here, our arrows split, and there's a reason why these two arrows split, and we're going to talk about those in just a second. So our next shape that we are going to talk about is our rhombus, and our rhombus can be considered a parallelogram. It can also be considered a quadrilateral because it has four sides. So, looking down here at a rhombus more specifically, a rhombus has two pairs of parallel lines. So again, these top two are parallel, these side two are parallel as well. It has four equal sides, so that means that all four of these sides here are equal. They are the same length. And last but not least, just like in a parallelogram, opposite angles are congruent. So this angle and this angle are congruent, this angle and this angle are congruent. So those angles are equal. Now, skipping over to a rectangle here, we have a rectangle, and this should be a shape that everyone is familiar with. A rectangle we know has four sides. A rectangle also has four right angles. Does anybody know what a right angle measures? If you said 90 degrees, you are correct. A rectangle measures 90 degrees. And oftentimes that can be shown with a mark just like this inside of the angle. Usually, if it has all four of those marked, that means that it is either a rectangle or one other shape that we are going to talk about here in just a little bit. Last but not least, on a rectangle, opposite sides are parallel. So these two lines here are parallel, and these two lines here are parallel. They're going to run on and on and on in those directions forever and ever and never touch. Last but not least, on our quadrilateral hierarchy, we have a shape that is called a square. A square has four equal sides. That means that all of those sides are equal. It has four right angles, so it has four 90-degree angles inside of it. And opposite sides are parallel, so again, those top and bottom sides are going to run on and on forever and ever and never touch. And the two sides are going to run on and on, up and down, forever and ever and never ever touch. Now, a couple things to think about and a couple things to talk about, and you guys might have already done this in your class as well. But when we think about this anchor chart and these different things, okay, we can think about what are all of these shapes, what can they be considered, or what are they considered? So as we're looking here at them, a quadrilateral is obviously a quadrilateral, but it is also known as a polygon. A polygon, poly means many sides, so it is a figure that has many sides. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral. All three of these shapes can also be considered polygons because it has many sides. Now, a rhombus and a rectangle can be a parallelogram and they can be a quadrilateral. They are also polygons as well. And a square can be a rhombus, a square can be a rectangle, a square is a parallelogram, and a square is a quadrilateral. It can also be known as a polygon because it has many sides. Now, the tricky question that I talked with my class about is, can a rectangle be a square? So think about that question for just a minute. Can a rectangle be a square? Why or why not? If you've said no, a rectangle cannot be a square, you are correct. A rectangle cannot be a square because it does not have four equal sides. That is a huge component to a square, and that is something that it has to have in order to be considered a square. I will leave the link out there for this video so that way you can find it if you ever need to look back on it, but if you have any questions, please make sure that you ask.